Here we are rolling into summer, even though today it kind of feels like fall. Producer Dude says we got to give something back. Some of these people, and I emphasis on some, are actually following along. They're paying attention. They're asking questions. So we want to reward you guys. We're going to answer questions. Producer Dude, what do we got?
All right, so yes, so I compiled, spent last night late till about 2 a.m. compiling all these questions.
There's no overtime pay for that.
Not really. This was actually very easy. So first question is from Bruce William, and he says, what is your go-to spinning rod length and action to run with bottom bouncers? Great job.
Well, I don't use spinning rods when I'm using bottom bouncers, so I'm using a bait casting setup. So I don't know how to exactly answer that, but most times, spinning reel is going to kind of do one of these and it's going to twist up. So a bait caster is going to have that level wind. So that's what I like to use. I've used a lot of things through the years. I'm usually using my Shimano Dakota because it has a line counter on it. And I've actually got a prototype rod that you're going to see very soon that I've been working on with folks at Shimano that is absolutely perfect for that. That'll be coming out in the Compre series. Not to say that you can't use a spinning rod, it's just not for me for the reasons that I mentioned. So
Dirty Bird with
yes,
no
please.
vowels in this name, just Dirty Bird.
Okay, Dirty Bird.
How do you get the outside board in without tangling the inside boards?
Dirty Bird, there's not a good answer for that. It really depends on the fish and what you're doing. Speed helps. So if you're going 2.5 miles an hour, that fish may pull out on its own, and it may just pull out right out and around. And if you're going 1 mile an hour, it may not. So in some cases, I would say that, I like to keep a lot of spread on your boards because there's not a simple answer to this. There's a lot of little nuances of it. So if you have your boards spread out really far apart, sometimes I can take somebody and have them reel from the front of the boat up near my trolling motor and actually pull that up and around. And in other cases, I'm going to float the boards back. So there's not a simple answer to that. You got to keep in mind your lead lengths, for tangling. If you got 200 feet of line out on one and 100 on the other, you got a bad situation there. But if I'm crankbait fishing, for example, I'll actually float that board that's next closest to it straight back. Immediately you have to do it. And that's going to get everything right on the surface. And it's kind of like Top Gun air brakes there. You're going to have that middle board go all the way back around, and that other one, the outside board has the fish on it, is going to come underneath that. And then that middle board, or the one that was closest to us, is going to be the new outside for the time being. So kind of one of those things you almost have to see in person. We'll try to do a video for that, but it's really difficult because there's so many different scenarios with that.
All right, Raph asks, when fishing with crawler harnesses, can you use a snap weight in place of an inline weight if needed?
You certainly can. I don't do it just because I'm comfortable with the bead chains, but it really depends on what your situation is. If you're fishing a place like Green Bay, for example, or Lake Michigan specifically, probably more than Green Bay, and you've got like Bay to Knock, if you've got super clean water, a snap weight may be a better situation, but I prefer the bead chains because I feel like I can better control the depth with those and my speed ups and my slowdown. And I also feel like I get a lot better hookups if I don't have to do that, because if you have, let's say, a 10-foot leader and then you've got or 20 or 30 or whatever with the snap weight, now all of a sudden that fish has a lot of different angles and he can throw that. There's just a lot more slack that's in there. But when super gin clear water, they probably are going to get you more bites.
All right, Wade Rowcliffe wants to know how the winds affect your trolling.
Wind is the big deal. It's the current. We've talked about the fish hawk, and people still just, I don't know, they don't believe me or they don't pay attention to it. Currents are crazy. In open water, there's so many lakes that have a lot of current. Lake Erie, by definition, is actually more of a river or an inland sea than it is a lake because we have a natural west to east flow. And that current affects everything. If you think about it, if you went and fished in a river and didn't take current into effect, you really wouldn't do very well, and it's no different on Lake Erie. So, generally speaking, we're gonna wanna go with the waves because that's where the current's gonna go. But I can think back just about 4 or 5 days ago where the current and the wind direction, because it was changing, hadn't caught up with each other, and I actually had to go into about maybe a roughly 1 foot chop, and I was just pile driving them. That was the only way I could get them to go. I kind of read that. A long time this is what I do, but also the simplest way is you just look at the fish hawk, because once I turned that on, it became very easy to determine what my speed was, and the current is going to affect how you catch fish, no doubt. It affects how the fish move and everything else.
All right, Mega Mike wants to know if you prefer rod holders or rod trees. I even know the answer to this question.
Dude, scan right down here, Big Daddy. Yes. I use the trees and I use rod holders. You know, I've got a tube on here. I've got some Burt's riser cradles and then some Burt's swivel trees. The trees are great for those far out lines because it allows to have a lot of rod holders in a very small platform, and allows me to get the things away from the boat, which is really important, and keep that line angle up when it's really flat calm or really rough, either one. And in most cases, we're gonna have one of those things in a day or two. So I like both of those things. And then I have the cradles coming back. So whether it's a flat line, a bottom bouncer, or my inside board, I'm gonna want that line lower. And that's where I'll use either the tube or a cradle. Same thing goes for Dipsy. So don't think of it as one or the other, use them both.
For this video. Do you change your hooks out on your baits, and what kind and size do you use?
Well, yes, I do. I own thousands of crankbaits, so I don't switch them all out just randomly. The baits I use the most, or let's say on like a Northland Rumble shad or a stick or something, I may have 10 of the exact same color in that. So the 1 or 2 that I'm primarily going to be using day in and out, I may change the hooks out on those. But the most important part of that whole thing is to change them out with exactly the same weight. Put them on a little postal scale or something. If you have a different size hook, they're either going to tangle or it's going to change the action of the bait. Something like a husky jerk perfectly suspends. You put bigger hooks on it, it will sink. So make sure that you don't oversize your hooks unless it's something that's a really aggressive bait that it's not gonna throw it off. I use a lot of different hooks. VMCs, Gamakatsus are some of my favorite, but make sure you get the exact same size. Thanks for playing along. Thanks for the questions. We do appreciate them. During the season, it can be tough to get back on things right away. Producer dude's going one way, I'm going the other. But make sure you keep following along. Ask us the questions, give us some follow back, shoot us an email. We're gonna start doing some more of these videos to get you guys more in tune with what's going on.